Before I begin my speech, I'd like to make a few thank yous. Thank you to Dad for teaching me how to integrate polynomials and not getting too upset when I forgot to add a constant for Miss Ganora's calculus class. Thank you to Mom for encouraging me throughout the way and somehow waking me up from way too many naps during junior year. Thank you to my brother Albert. I look forward to biking with you to class at Stanford next year. And thank you to the students of the class of 2018. And thank you to the teachers. I'm sure we seniors were such a pleasure to have during second semester. I have to admit, I struggled with what to talk about today. I know I am but just another student who just happens to really like reading the margins of textbooks. What could I say that wouldn't be already obvious? So, being the AP World History and AP Research student I am, I decided to do some historical research of my own. And as I looked through War and SIS yearbooks from the 1970s, I started to gain a new perspective, one I'd like to share with you today. You see, I'd always thought of SIS as a regular, boring school. Just 7 years ago, when I first attended a summer program in the US, I remember introducing myself to a girl from Edward Devotion Middle School, a prestigious US school whose alum included figures like John F. Kennedy. I remember being asked what school I came from, and meekly raising my 5th grade voice to say I came from Seoul International School, explaining that it was just a small American school in the middle of Seoul. It turns out that description was both wildly incorrect and oversimplified. Truth is, our school's status and history are far too nuanced to dismiss in such a casual and nonchalant way. As the front page of the 2003 SIS yearbook reads, SIS was founded almost exactly 45 years ago on June 5th, 1973, as the first secular foreign school to be fully recognized by the Ministry of Education. Our original class size was just 45, established just 2 short decades after the Korean War, at a time when many still doubted the possibility of a better tomorrow for Korea, at a time when it wasn't really apparent what Korea's place in the world would be. It was in this period of strife that our founder, Dr. Edward Adams, dreamed of bringing an international education to Seoul. At a time when Korean citizens needed government permission to travel overseas, what Dr. Adams knew was the importance of an international education. He knew that if SIS could serve as the foundation of a global education, then maybe, just maybe, its students might be able to help a fledgling nation begin to look abroad and dream big. We may not have the luxury of a 300-year history or any Nobel laureate alum among us, but we have come a long way from 1973 and a class size of 45. And I've come to understand since that quiet 5th grade summer how we are a heck of a lot more complicated than just a small American-style school in Seoul. For many of our families, this graduation is not merely the story of a high schooler going to college, but part of a larger story, the story of hope for a brighter tomorrow. If you had told an SIS student's grandfather in the 1930s, during the height of Japanese oppression, that his grandson would be able to go abroad to study at one of the best universities in the world, he would have said you were delusional. If you had told an SIS student's mother in the 1980s, under a military dictatorship, that her daughter would be able to attend public demonstrations and speak out against her government and not risk political reprisal, you would have been told you were crazy. And that's why I am so incredibly inspired by the presence of the 3 generations of families in front of us today: grandparents, parents, and students. I'm inspired that a grandparent during the height of Japanese colonization who needed a pass to travel 60 miles from his hometown can now afford to send his grandchild over 6,000 miles away to study with the brightest minds in the world. That a father who endured tear gas and rubber bullets to fight for free and fair elections can now walk to a polling booth with his son as casually as one might pick up groceries. SIS in many ways is a place where a lot of dreams have come true. Not just the dreams of its students, but those of generations prior that pulled through thick and thin to invest in us and take a chance to send us to this school in the hopes of a brighter tomorrow. So now, the baton has been handed to us. As we look to the horizon, we will be entrusted with this opportunity, with the full knowledge that our stories are but part of a larger and continuing story. While ruling his country several decades ago, Singaporean Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew is said to have often recounted the story of Ozymandias. He was, of course, referring to Percy Shelley's sonnet about Ramses II, pharaoh of the Egyptian Empire. In the poem, a solitary traveler comes across a shattered statue in the desert. The statue's inscription reads, "My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair." Next to the statue was nothing but desert and ruins. According to the Prime Minister's grandson, his meaning was that if one's legacy did not persist, a monument would be of no use. And if one's legacy did persist, a memorial would be unnecessary. Indeed, in many ways, our legacies will not be reflected with marble or granite statues, but with a living, breathing nation. So, looking to the future, when I return to graduation as a parent, or most likely a very, very single uncle, I like to imagine what I'll return to and the legacy our generation will have left. I like to imagine that perhaps one day we'll leave behind a unified country. I like to imagine leaving behind an accepting society that's more kind and more just. I like to imagine that we will be known as a generation that studied and planned and executed our goals for the future. That when we look back at the advances our parents and grandparents made for us, that we seize those opportunities, that we refuse to rest on our laurels, and that we deliver the investment of those before us safely for generations to come. And taking a look at the class of 2018, I am confident as ever that our future is in safe hands. Thank you.